We are human too. And I know it sounds so basic, but I think so often through the process of becoming physicians and then specialists within our field, it involves so much competition, so much hard work that we can't help but sort of see ourselves as different, perhaps, and I don't necessarily mean this as arrogance, but that we are almost like immune to the things that happen to other people until, if of course, we experience something ourselves, which is very humbling, or we begin to look after our colleagues in medicine and realize that we are all just normal human beings with regular vulnerabilities. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm really delighted to be here. It's my first time in Colombia, and so far everything's been wonderful. I got into this area of wellness really through tragedy. I didn't even realize it at the time, but when I was a first-year medical student, one of our fellow medical students and a roommate of mine died by suicide. It was over the Thanksgiving weekend, which we have every year in America, and it just came as a complete shock to us. I was young. I was 19 years old. I was the last person in our class to see him alive. This was a long time ago in 1962. And back in those days, the stigma associated with suicide in the medical profession was absolutely profound, that everybody shut down. Nobody talked about it. We just buried ourselves in our studies. We didn't hear from the dean's office. Nobody spoke to us. We carried on. And it was only latterly then that as I was doing my training, and when I became a resident, I then remember so very clearly being on call one day on Christmas, and a physician was brought into the hospital in a manic state, and I learned so much from looking after him, and I got to know his family because he was then admitted to our inpatient unit. I had wonderful supervision, and those were two of the things I think that were foundational in attracting me into this area. Why it's so important is that I think that it's really critical that our trainees, beginning right at, even in pre-medicine or medicine, understand that this is a career that they're embarking on that will be much healthier for them if they realize from the beginning that we are interested in them as individuals and not just in their grades and how they succeed in medicine, because we know so much, of course, from burnout and the illnesses that we see in doctors, that those are the things that put us at risk of perhaps making a medical error or in attrition that we then are not able to advance in our field. And the other thing too that's so important is to educate, to fight stigma. Because in the House of Medicine, there is such almost a prohibition about the importance of self-care and early care, both primary and secondary prevention. Because when we have that in place, it just makes everything so much better. The number one is to make sure that we treat any patient could be a medical student or a resident or somebody who's finished their training, like anybody else that we would treat who just happens to be in medicine. So in other words, that we don't cut corners, that they get a very, very thorough biopsychosocial assessment, that we listen carefully and don't make assumptions that because they're in medicine, they'll be able to give us an accurate picture of their symptoms or their signs or something. We have to go through all of that with them to really make sure that we don't miss anything. The second thing I would like to say too, it's very important that we don't forget about their loved ones, because so often this is not intentional on the part of our doctor patients, but they may forget or don't realize that there are other things going on at home that their loved ones are very, very worried about. And so when we have that so-called collateral information, it really helps us get a complete picture and to render then very state-of-the-art care. One last comment I would have is that we are living in an era now where increasing numbers of physicians are actually telling their stories. They're writing about this, not just in medical journals, but sometimes in the newspapers or in the general media. Generally, the public have been very, very accepting of this, which is a surprise to many physicians, that they thought that, oh my gosh, they won't trust us, or they'll think that we're not competent, or that we're not safe. It's quite the opposite, actually. They see us as individuals who are just humanistic, who take care of ourselves, and it makes us more empathic, that therefore then we can more easily appreciate their struggles. So that's really a very important message, that we don't need to be afraid of the public.